Imagine walking through a gate lost for thousands of years, one that may have stood in the days of King Solomon himself. That's exactly what this video unveils: the breathtaking discovery of Solomon's Gate, unearthed astonishingly close to the Temple Mount. It's not just a gate, it's a key to unlocking the world of ancient Israel. What makes this moment so powerful is that it reveals a truth many have overlooked. Jerusalem is not built on a single history, but on layer after layer of civilizations. As we explore the site, we step through time itself, from the age of Herod the Great, through the ruins of the Roman Empire, past the Byzantine period, into Islamic conquests and beyond. Each stone tells a different chapter, but they all speak the same language: legacy. At the heart of this legacy lies the city of David, believed by many to be the true biblical Zion. This is the place where King David ruled a united kingdom, where prophets walked, and where Israel's spiritual identity first took root. It's more than an archaeological zone. It's the birthplace of a people's promise. This opening sets the tone for an unforgettable journey, not just across Jerusalem's walls, but deep into its soul. If you've ever wondered whether ancient prophecy and modern discovery could meet face to face, this is where the search begins. If this discovery sparked something in you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell us. Do you believe Solomon's Gate could redefine how we understand Jerusalem's true beginnings? As we leave behind the mystery of Solomon's Gate, the journey leads us further, toward the eastern edge of Jerusalem's most sacred ground. But this is no ordinary walk. Every step along these ancient walls reveals new dimensions of power, prophecy, and paradox. Moving alongside the Temple Mount's eastern wall, we find ourselves caught between two worlds. On one side, the solemn Mount of Olives, crowned with centuries-old Jewish tombs that whisper of kings and priests. On the other, a newer Muslim cemetery, built during Ottoman rule, sits in stark contrast, both physically and symbolically. Legend says this cemetery was placed here with purpose, to block the Jewish Messiah from entering the Temple Mount, because according to tradition, a priestly Messiah would not cross through the impurity of a graveyard. But what if such attempts were in vain? What if the one foretold carries the power to raise the dead, to cleanse what is unclean, to walk through history's barriers untouched? This moment along the Eastern Wall is more than a scenic detour. It's a confrontation between human resistance and divine promise. And it challenges us to ask, how far will people go to stop what prophecy declares unstoppable? As we continue tracing the sacred Eastern Wall, a remarkable pattern begins to emerge, one not just of stones, but of ambition, faith, and vision across centuries. Here, etched into the very structure of the Temple Mount, are visible seams, physical lines that divide original from expansion, ancient from slightly less ancient. They're not just architectural markers. They're the fingerprints of empires, the evidence of how deeply the Jewish people longed to elevate their connection with God. We first see the Hasmonean extension, built after the return from Babylonian exile, an effort to re-establish spiritual identity after devastation. Then comes the most ambitious of all, the grand expansion by Herod the Great. To accommodate more worshippers and elevate Jerusalem's glory, he pushed the platform's walls westward, northward, and southward, reshaping not just a city, but a statement of power and purpose. These expansions weren't cosmetic. They signified revival, resilience, and reverence, each stone laid as both a prayer and a declaration. We are still here. In a modern world where history is often rewritten or erased, the Temple Mount stands as a rare monument that literally grew with the people's hope across time, war, and exile. As we shift from the towering expansions of Herod to the southern slope of the Temple Mount, we come face to face with what was once the main entrance to the Second Temple, the Huldah gates. To the untrained eye, they may seem like mere arches in the stone. But these now sealed gateways once welcomed thousands of pilgrims ascending in reverence, Jews from across the ancient world, coming to worship, offer sacrifices, and walk the courts of the living God. This was the threshold of holiness. And what surrounded this sacred approach? Evidence of deep preparation. Purification pools, Mikvehs, dot the area where worshippers would cleanse themselves before entering. These weren't random customs. They were physical rituals tied to deep spiritual readiness, a culture where the body and soul both prepared to meet the divine. Right beside this site lies the Davidson Archaeological Center, a true mosaic of history. Here, shards of time collide. Remnants from the First Temple, relics from the Roman era, stones shaped in the Byzantine period, and layers of Muslim and Crusader presence. It's as if Jerusalem breathes through its ruins, whispering every chapter of its past. This part of the journey isn't just about gates or stones. It's about thresholds, physical thresholds into the temple, and metaphorical thresholds between eras, empires, and eternal purpose. Sometimes, history doesn't shout. It whispers from the stones, barely rising above the dust and wind. And yet, when it's heard, it can shake the foundations of everything we thought we knew. Nestled between the steep descent of the Kidron Valley and the majestic rise of the Temple Mount lies a ridge, silent, unassuming, and long forgotten. But recent excavations have revealed something extraordinary: the outlines of a massive ancient gate, now believed to be part of a Solomonic fortification. This is not speculation. The structure's unique three-chamber design, found only in cities tied to King Solomon's reign, Hazor, Gezer, and now here, anchors this discovery in time and text. This is no ordinary gate. It is a royal signature etched in stone, built at the height of Israel's golden age under the son of David. Its presence here reinforces a truth rooted in both scripture and soil. The city of David is not legend. It is legacy. Stretching below the Temple Mount, the city of David, once hidden beneath modern neighborhoods, continues to yield treasures long buried. Royal foundations, defensive walls, ancient tunnels, and remnants of grandeur that align seamlessly with the biblical account. This isn't just archaeology, it's identity. Proof that long before conquest, exile, or return, the Jewish people had their heart, their throne, and their temple right here. In a world where heritage is often questioned, these stones speak with clarity. And in their silence they affirm, this was David's city, and Solomon's gate watched over it. Not every path in Jerusalem was paved in glory. Some led to shadows, quiet exits carrying burdens the city could not keep. As we move past the sacred thresholds of the Temple Mount, our steps draw us to a lesser-known gate, one that once dealt not in incense and sacrifice, but in ashes and refuse. This is the Dung Gate, an unassuming passage with a name that evokes waste, but a story that reveals purpose. Long before its modern widening, this gate was a narrow slit in the city's fortification, mentioned in the book of Nehemiah as the way out for that which had to be removed. From here, ashes from the altar and the remains of offerings were carried out and burned, away from the presence of the holy. And yet, it is here, just steps from the city's discarded remnants, that layers of forgotten worlds emerge. Beneath our feet lies a Roman road, once part of the Decumanus Maximus, a lifeline of the ancient city. Beside us stands a medieval tower's foundation, a silent witness to crusaders, invaders, and guardians long gone. The Dung Gate reminds us, not all sacred things shine. Some are wrapped in labor, in purification, in the unseen work of keeping what is holy, clean. Even refuse has ritual. Even roads of removal can lead us deeper into the mystery. And sometimes, what the city casts out becomes the very thing that helps us understand what was truly within. From the quiet labor of the Dung Gate, one might assume the story begins to settle. But just beyond its shadow lies a place where the silence breaks, not with noise, but with weight. Literal weight. Stones, massive, fallen, unmoved for 2,000 years. Here we arrive at the western face of the Temple Mount. It's not merely a wall, it's a boundary between heaven and earth, trauma and hope, memory and longing. Beneath our feet are the shattered remains of the Second Temple, hurled down by Roman forces during the siege of 70 AD. They didn't just destroy a building, they tried to break a soul, and yet the wall remained. Standing nearby is the Wilson's Arch, a colossus in stone, once supporting a bridge that carried worshippers into the temple courtyard. Today, beneath its enduring curve, lies a hidden synagogue, tucked under layers of time, built against the surviving foundation, as if faith refused to be buried. Further along rises the Robinson's Arch, which once held a grand staircase, allowing tens of thousands to ascend into the holy precincts. Its broken remnants still cling to the southern corner of the mount, half destroyed, yet wholly defiant. These arches were never meant to be merely structural. They were gateways into reverence, bridges into a realm where the divine once dwelled among men. Here, amidst fallen stones and fractured arches, the Western Wall continues to draw hearts from across the world, not just because it stood the test of time, but because it never stopped calling people home. But as we leave the last visible stones of the temple's grandeur, a different world begins to unfold, one of narrow alleys, shifting borders, and a gate scarred by war. What waits at Zion? At first, it's easy to mistake the quiet of the street for peace. But the closer we draw to this next gate, the more the silence thickens, the kind that carries memory. And just like that, we arrive at a wall that doesn't just speak, it bleeds. This is the Zion Gate, pierced, cracked, and pocked with bullet holes. Its very surface still bears the scars of the 1948 War of Independence, a fierce battle where Jewish fighters, blocked by British-trained Jordanian forces, failed to reclaim the old city. Each mark is a silent monument to resistance, failure, sacrifice, and ultimately, return. But the mystery doesn't stop at the surface. Despite its name, the Zion Gate is not located on biblical Mount Zion. That title was misassigned by crusaders who believed this nearby hill to be the sacred mount of Scripture. And yet, the name endured. For centuries, pilgrims and conquerors alike have walked through this gate, drawn by tradition, even if the truth lies elsewhere, further down at the city of David. So what then is Zion Gate? A mistake? A relic? A symbol? Perhaps it's all three. A place where myth meets memory, where stories once misread still carry meaning, and where a name, even if misplaced, refuses to be forgotten. And just as we begin to understand the weight of this gate's legacy, the road bends one last time. Sometimes, the closer you get to the end, the more the lines blur. between myth and memory, truth and tradition. And as the narrow streets widen, a final gate looms ahead, not ancient in appearance, but full of hidden weight. This is the Jaffa Gate, the western threshold of the old city, and once the grand welcome for emperors, pilgrims, and prophets. Unlike the L-shaped bends of other fortified gates, this one bears a strange discontinuity, a gap in the wall, carved deliberately. Why? To honor the arrival of Kaiser Wilhelm II in 1898. The Ottomans tore through centuries of stone so that a European ruler wouldn't have to dismount his horse. What was once a gate of humility became a gate of spectacle. And towering beside it stands one of Jerusalem's most iconic silhouettes, the Tower of David. But here lies the twist. It was never David's. This tower is actually the remains of Herod the Great's fortress, later reused by Romans, Byzantines, Crusaders, and Ottomans. Its association with David stems from a Muslim tradition and centuries of misidentification. And yet, perhaps that doesn't matter. Because tradition has power. Names, even misplaced, shape the memory of a city. And whether or not David walked these stones, generations have passed beneath them, whispering his name, praying for peace, and dreaming of return. Here, near the Tower of David, and through the Jaffa Gate, east meets west, past meets present, and Jerusalem reveals one final truth. Not all that's real is seen, and not all that's seen is fully known. But before we leave these walls behind, one final question lingers in the stone and dust. After all we've seen, what does it truly mean to walk the gates of Jerusalem? In the end, it wasn't just a tour of gates. It was a descent into memory, layer by layer, stone by stone, through a city that refuses to forget. We began at Solomon's Gate, where ancient foundations whispered of kings and covenants. We walked alongside tombs and valleys, along broken walls and rebuilt dreams. We stood where pilgrims once purified, where Herod reshaped holy ground, where war carved bullet holes into centuries-old stone. Each gate told a different story, the Golden Gate, sealed and silent, yet echoing with messianic hope. The Dung Gate, humble yet essential, carrying out what could not remain. The Zion Gate, bruised by battle, but still standing. The Jaffa Gate, where tradition, empire, and myth collided under the shadow of a tower that wasn't David's, but somehow still is. And then there's what cannot be seen. The tears, the prayers, the footsteps of millions who've passed through these thresholds with hope, with longing, with faith. Jerusalem is not just a city. It's a heartbeat, ancient and alive, scarred but sacred. It reminds us that even in the rubble, even when names are misplaced or gates sealed shut, the story continues. So whether you come to Jerusalem with questions, with reverence, or with open wonder, know this. Its gates may be made of stone, but what passes through them is eternal. If Jerusalem's story moved you, subscribe for more journeys through sacred history. What gate spoke to you most, and why? Leave a comment below and let the conversation continue across time.